Assalamu alaikum. This is the second video in this series. In the first video, we just presented 2 points. General history about Palestine and its shape, and the need to study history carefully. In this video, we'll talk about biblical and historical rights. Ariel Sharon, who was Israeli Prime Minister, said that the Oslo Agreement is very important for the Palestinians, since it is the only official agreed upon document they got. We have another document, a much older one, the Bible. Many others keep referring to Palestine as the promised land. So, based on what had been mentioned in the Torah or the Old Testament. So, we need to study this and see what does it mean. We'll address it from the stand of other Jewish leaders. What did they say? And also we'll try to address it from theological perspective. Here we have Mr. Cohen. He was the chairman of Jewish Board of Guardians in Britain. He said, upon the discussion that happened in Britain prior to Balfour Declaration, he was consulted, should we have national homeland for Jews in Palestine or not? So he said the following: the establishment of a national home for Jewish race in Palestine presupposes that Jews are a nation, which I deny, and that they are homeless, which implies that in the countries where they enjoy religious liberty and full rights of citizenship, they are separate entities, unidentified with the interests of the nations which they form parts, and implication which I repudiate. So he denies that Jews constitute a nation, and he denies that promoting Jewish homeland in Palestine, because it implies that Jews are living where they are living in isolation, and their interest is different than the interest of the society which they form part of. And he rejects that. Now we know that before even Balfour Declaration, there were anti-Semitic sentiments appeared in Europe. That can't be denied, and we'll talk about this later on. So, but it doesn't mean, according to him, that Jews form a separate nation. And Lord George Curzon, who was the British Foreign Secretary after Balfour, said, I don't myself recognize that the connection of Jews with Palestine, which terminated 1200 years ago, gives them any claims whatsoever. On this principle, we, the British, have a stronger claim to France. This is what he said, and the reference is The Guardian. All of these references can be shown maybe in the description box. So those people, him and Cohen, talked about the political implication of this claim. And even Eliane Papé said the following, commenting on the issue of biblical and historical rights. Jewish tradition and clearly instruct Jews to await the coming of the promised Messiah at the end of time, before they can return Earth Israel as a sovereign people in a Jewish theocracy. So he was telling them, wait a minute. In the Torah, it says that you cannot establish a sovereign nation in Palestine before the Messiah comes back, which is also carried out by many Jewish organizations like Netori Karta. So the claim here that the biblical and historical rights, which is used to justify creating this entity, is opposed by, we see leaders like Cohen, British politicians like Corazon, and even professors like Eliane Papé. But how about the Torah? The Torah, as it is mentioned, now when I talk about the Torah, we need to keep in mind that we have two versions of the Old Testament. We have the Hebrew Torah, which is carried out and adopted by public Jews in general all over the world. But we have the Samarite Torah, which is adopted by a small group, lives now in Nablus, West Bank, in a mountain called Gerizim, and some part of them live inside Israel. So they are referring to the Torah as the Samarite Torah. And they say our Torah is more credible than the Hebrew Torah. But when I went over these texts, I compared both. They are, in this issue, they are the same with one difference. The Hebrew Torah refers to Jerusalem and the Mount of Zion, while the Samarite Torah refers to Shechem or Nablus and its mountain. But anyway, the Torah recognizes that the Canaanites used to live in Palestine before the Israelites entered there. So we know that they used to live there even before Ibrahim alayhi salam moved to Palestine from north of Iraq. And Canaanites were Arabs who belonged to the Semitic race from Arabian Peninsula. And the Hebrew Bible, or the Torah in both, adopted by the Jews and adopted by the Samarites, talks about this issue, that there was surviving nation used to live there before the Israelites entered to the town, to the area. But even the Hebrew Bible uses the word Jebusite. Jebusite, which are cousins of the Canaanites, and refers to the city of Jerusalem as the word Jebusite also, Yabus. So we have two names, Yabus, which is Jerusalem, and Shechem, which is Nablus. Later on, they got divided into two nations, as we know in the history. The Yehuda and Samarite. Yehuda in the south of Palestine, Jerusalem and surroundings, and the Samarite in Nablus, until there was an invasion from outside and demolished these two entities in Palestine. Now, if we want to have some theological debate about this, yes, the Torah told Abraham and later on Isaac that, okay, you will be having this land. But the point is, also the same Torah told them that this is conditional promise. Actually, when Musa alayhi salam asked them to enter into the land, they refused. They refused, and they went, for 40 years wandering in Sinai. And the Quran documents this, and the Torah documents this. But at the same time, even we have in the Torah, like in the book of Numbers, chapter 14, it talks about when Musa alayhi salam asked them to enter into that town they rejected, not just they rejected, some of them started plotting to return back to Egypt, to live under the persecution of Fir'aun. And only after the death of Musa alayhi salam, as we know, there is a prophet came after him, and some of them entered. But even again, go back to the the Torah, it tells us that this promise is not given to them because of Israel's righteousness. That's in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 9. It says that if you disobey, you will be this will be taken away from you. Actually, in one says in one verse, Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 8, let me read. Observe therefore all the commands I am giving to you today, so that you may have the strength to go in and take over the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. And in the verse 9, and so that you may live long in the land the Lord swore to your ancestors to give to them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. And in the same book, chapter 31, it says, you will be perished from the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not live there long, and you will be certainly destroyed if you disobey the land, the commands of the land. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 4. I will call, in verse 26 it says exactly, I call the heavens and the earth as witness against you this day that you will quickly perish from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not live there long, but will certainly be destroyed. The Lord will scatter you among the peoples, and only few of you will survive among the nations to which the Lord will drive you. So it's not absolute promise, but rather it is conditional promise. Now, I'm not getting into too much theological debate about this, but at the end of the day, one time Ben Gurion said, as we will see later on, that I don't blame Arabs for what they are doing. They just see us as people came and stole their land. Surely God gave it to us, but what does it mean to them? Our God is not theirs. I would say no. Our God and their God is the same. وَإِلَهُكُمْ إِلَهٌ وَاحِدٌ. And the Quran Kareem stated that our God is one God. But how do you interpret the commands of God is what's different. So you are trying to use the Torah to justify political project, knowing that you refused to enter the land, knowing that some of you tried even to plot to go back to Egypt when Musa alayhi salam ordered the Israelites to enter into Palestine, knowing that the promise is conditional. So it's not open promise to go and conquer the land because of a divine right, but rather it was conditional promise, and they didn't maintain the condition itself. So the promise, as mentioned in the Torah, will not survive, and it cannot be used as justification. But the Zionist movement is using these religious justifications to mobilize people. There is another statement said very much similar to this. Recently, the Israeli finance minister Smotrich said there is no such thing as Palestinian nation. There is no Palestinian history. There is no Palestinian language. Again, as a nation within the current nation-state borders, it didn't exist, but there is Palestinian history. There are Palestinian people who are Canaanites, Arabs, and their language was Arabic language. There is no quote-unquote Palestinian language. There is no Syrian language or Lebanese language. There are slangs to exist today, the Palestinian slang, the Egyptian slang, the Saudi slang, Iraqi slang, but all of them have the same language. In one episode, PBS News Hour wrote the following. His remarks, Smotrich remarks, on Palestinians were actually repeated for those which were said by late Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir. And that caused her uproar in 1969 because she said that there is no Palestinians. Although when she migrated to Palestine, she applied for Palestinian passport. She told the New York Times that she meant that there never be a Palestinian nation. But actually, she said Palestinian people. But critics say the comments continue to tarnish her legacy, according to the PBS. So, to deny the existence of people there and to say that there is no Palestinian people, no Palestinian language, no Palestinian rights, goes against history. And Dr. Avi Shalim, he wrote in his great book, Iron Wall, in responding to these comments, denying the existence of people living in Palestine known as people of Palestine or Palestinians, he said the following. Avi Shalim, for those who don't know him, he is an Arab Iraqi Jew. His family was forced to leave from Iraq to Palestine after the creation of Israel. And he said very interesting things. He said, we didn't leave by choice. But the Zionist movement managed to have some explosions in some synagogues so that to intimidate Jews to leave to Palestine. This is what he said. Avi Shalim wrote in his book, the publication of the Jewish state, this is Theodor Herzl's book, evoked various reactions in the Jewish community, some strongly favorable, some hostile, and some skeptical. After the Basel Conference, which is the first Zionist conference in 1897, as we will see later on, the rabbis of Vienna sent two representatives to Palestine. This fact-finding mission resulted in a cable from Palestine in which the two rabbis wrote about Palestine. The bride is beautiful, but she is married to another man. Because the claim was, we need to give a land without people to people without land. So when Herzl wants to, as we'll see later on, to have his first Zionist Congress, people were skeptical. Not all Jews agreed with him. Not all rabbis agreed with him. So rabbis of Vienna sent those two delegates to Palestine to report to them what's going on. Is it really empty land or not? So they said, the bride is beautiful, Palestine is beautiful, which indeed is, but she is married to another man. There are people there. You cannot just claim that it is open land. So with this, what we can conclude is that regarding the religious text, everyone is going to interpret it to their own. Some politicians are interpreting it to justify the existence of this Zionist settler colony, while other Jews also includes politicians, includes people in academia, includes other leaders, oppose that. Don't accept that claim. So, and the notion is that you cannot have an entity, sovereign entity, until after Messiah comes back. So the current claim is that no, we need to establish this entity, so we will enhance the possibility for Messiah to come back. So he will come back after we establish it, versus we cannot establish after he comes back. So which means that you cannot take these religious texts as justification for this. So by this we conclude this video, and inshallah we'll have the third video about Zionism and Theodor Herzl. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.